somewhere off the coast of Peru, a new type of smiling fish has been discovered. It's officially called a snailfish.
7 miles down, in the blackest water on Earth, a camera light swings across the floor of the deepest trench on the planet, and something pale drifts into the beam. It is soft, almost see-through. It should not be there.
No more than 30 centimeters long, with barely a bone in their translucent bodies, the immense pressure of the water holds their gelatinous flesh together.
At that depth, the pressure crushes steel like a can, and yet this thing is whole, unhurried. Gliding through it like the water is nothing. On the ship above, the scientist watching the monitor stops talking mid-sentence, because for the first time ever, in 4K, we are looking straight at an animal every rule we had said could not exist. The Descent. The year is 2019, and Victor Vescovo is sealing himself inside a submersible called the DSV Limiting Factor, beginning his fall into the Mariana Trench. This is not a dive. It is climbing into a metal sphere and lowering yourself, on purpose, into a zone of death. As the sub sinks, the light drains away until the darkness is so complete that you could press your hand flat against the glass and never see it. The descent lasts nearly 4 hours through black water, and with every meter, the pressure climbs towards something the mind cannot picture. By the time the sub reaches the bottom, that pressure crosses 16,000 pounds per square inch. Hold that number for a second. If a single seal fails, if the engineering makes one small mistake, a human body would not be injured. It would simply be gone, not in minutes, in a second. And the silence does something to a person. Down here, there is nothing but the machine and the growing awareness that every meter of water above you is another wall between you and the world you came from. You are on your own in a way almost no human has ever been. At 35,853 feet, the sub settles onto the ocean floor. And think about what it takes to choose this. To climb into that sphere with no rescue plan and no safety net, knowing this place has killed almost everyone who ever underestimated it. He went anyway because he understood something most of us forget. In 2019, the deepest place on Earth was still more of a blank than the surface of the moon. Then, the lights came on, and the camera started to record a world apart. The Hadal Zone. To understand why what that camera caught was so disturbing, you have to understand the place it was filming. This is a subduction zone, where the Pacific Plate grinds slowly beneath the Mariana Plate, pulling this wound open in the Earth's crust for millions of years. Here is the simplest way to feel it. Take Mount Everest and drop the whole thing in. Its peak, the highest point on the surface of the Earth, would still sit almost a full mile underwater. The pressure at the bottom is beyond 1,000 atmospheres, 1,000 times the weight of the air you are sitting under right now, pressing on everything at once. But the part that truly gets under my skin is the darkness. Sunlight gives out at around 3,000 feet, and this trench is nearly 10 times deeper. It is so black that it makes no difference whether your eyes are open or closed. You would see the same nothing, and where there is no light, there are no plants. Where there are no plants, nothing is making food. A fish dies near the surface, miles up, and its body begins a slow, silent fall, until days later, what is left touches a floor that has never seen the sun. That is the entire menu. Crushing weight, freezing cold, total blackness, and a few crumbs raining down from a world the bottom will never see. Nothing could live down there. We were so certain of it that we named the place after the underworld. Scientists call this layer the Hadal Zone, after Hades, the ancient realm of the dead. We labeled it the land of the dead before we had ever properly looked. The old belief. For most of human history, the smartest people alive agreed. The deep ocean was empty. In the 1800s, when scientists first dragged samples up from the deep sea, their equipment kept coming back with nothing. The deep, they decided, was a dark, drowned desert. Then, in 1960, something happened that should have shaken that loose. The bathyscaphe Trieste carried 2 men, Don Walsh and Jacques Picard, down to Challenger Deep, and they came back reporting they had seen living creatures on the bottom. But the technology was painfully limited. The cameras could not capture clear footage, and what they witnessed could not be proven. The doubt swallowed it, and for years the scientific world held the line. Life at these depths, they maintained, does not exist. But what if every one of them was wrong? What if the only thing missing was a way to actually see? Do me one quick favor before we follow that camera down, and hit subscribe, because one pale, delicate thing is waiting at the bottom of this story, and it should not be alive. You are going to want to be here when the lights find it. Now, let's keep going down. Technology changes everything. After 1970, the tools finally caught up, and the old certainty began to crack. Then came 1977, and a discovery that hit science like a thunderclap. On the deep ocean floor, researchers found hydrothermal vents, places where superheated mineral-rich water pours up out of the crust like underwater volcanoes. And around them were entire communities of creatures, growing, feeding, breeding, locked into a full food chain, all of it thriving in absolute darkness without a trace of sunlight. That is where a strange new idea forced its way in. Chemosynthesis. Some organisms do not need the sun at all. They build their energy straight out of chemicals, which meant life could exist in a place light had never touched. Every time we had drawn a hard line and said life cannot cross this, the ocean had quietly crossed it already and was waiting for us to catch up. But the deepest part of the world, the true bottom of the trenches, was still a complete blank. And then a man decided he was going to go down there and look for himself. The 2019 mission. In 2019, Victor Vescovo launched the 5 Deeps expedition with one staggering goal. He wanted to touch the deepest point of every ocean on Earth, and the hardest, the one that had beaten almost everyone before him, was Challenger Deep. This time, the difference was not just nerve. The DSV limiting factor was engineered specifically to take the full crushing force of the deepest ocean, and mounted on it was the thing that would change everything, a 4K camera system able to capture the smallest detail in the total darkness. He made dive after dive below 33,000 feet, each one a gamble with the ocean stacked overhead, and every time the cameras rolled for hours over a place no eye had ever clearly seen. But Vescovo was not the only one paying attention. Up on the support ship, the expedition's chief scientist was waiting for that footage, the deep-sea biologist Alan Jameson. When the recordings came onto his screens, he checked his expectations against what was actually moving across the frame, and what he saw did not match those expectations at all. Too much life. Every assumption pointed one way. Even if something did survive down there, it would be rare. A stray organism here, another scattered far across an empty plain. Then the lights hit the bottom and the screen filled with life, crowding the frame. The first to arrive were amphipods, small, shrimp-like animals. And the moment bait went into the water, they swarmed it. They came in such enormous numbers that, under the camera light, they stopped looking like individual animals at all and became a single moving cloud. Imagine watching that feed, expecting an empty grave, and instead seeing a feeding frenzy in a place an entire field had described as nearly empty. Then the camera found the sea cucumbers, soft, strange shapes crawling unhurried across the mud. And that ordinariness is the thing that should stop you cold. We expected at most life hanging on by a thread. What the camera showed was calm and routine, animals completely at home in a place we had decided was uninhabitable. The dead desert generations of scientists had drawn in their minds was a busy working neighborhood. The map was wrong, and now there was footage to prove it. A hidden city. The abundance was only the first surprise. The deeper jolt came from how varied that life was. This was not one hardy species scraping by alone. Even among the amphipods there were different types, some thin, some bulky, some darting fast, while others hugged the seabed. Then came the worms, the isopods, and shapes barely ever recorded this deep. And none of them were isolated. A complete food web was humming away down there in the dark. Scavengers worked the dead material drifting down. Filter feeders pulled nutrients straight from the water. Predators hunted the smaller animals around them. Every creature had a role, a place, a purpose. A system this organized, in conditions this brutal, was something no one was prepared to find. It wasn't survival, it was a society. And a society does not appear overnight. A food web layered like that takes a very long time to build, which means life did not stumble into the trench and die. It settled there, generation after generation, long enough to specialize and shape itself to the dark, which raises a quiet, uncomfortable question. How long has this been going on, right underneath us, in the one place we never thought to check? If these communities have been running for thousands or even millions of years, then we are not looking at some fragile fluke. We are looking at one of the oldest, most stubborn experiments in survival on the planet, carried out in total secrecy, while everyone above assumed the rooms were empty. Built for the dark. There was one last assumption still standing. Even if life was abundant, surely it would be slow and sluggish, half asleep in the cold, conserving every scrap of energy. The footage tore that apart too. The amphipods were fast, attacking the bait in a mob the instant it appeared. And the fish moving through the same water were swimming smoothly, in full control, exactly like fish in warm, shallow water near a beach. They were not enduring this place, they were thriving in it. So how do they pull it off? How does anything live under a weight that would erase a human in a second? The answer is quieter than you would expect. Their bodies are mostly water, and water barely compresses, so the pressure inside them stays almost perfectly matched to the pressure outside. They are not bracing against the ocean. They are in balance with it, the same force pushing in and pushing out, canceling itself. The trench cannot crush them because there is nothing rigid inside for it to crush. The real trick is smaller, down at the level of their cells. Their proteins keep their shape, and their cell membranes stay flexible under pressure that would warp ours. And this is the part I keep turning over. They did not invent some alien biology to do this. They run on the same basic machinery you and I run on, just adjusted in a few precise places. Life does not need to become something else to conquer the impossible. It only needs to bend in the right spots, which is exactly what makes the next thing on that footage so hard to explain. Because bending has a limit, and one animal down there was ignoring it completely. Giants and shadows. This is where the story stops being amazing and starts crawling under your skin. Because some of the creatures down there were too big. The amphipods were reaching 6 to 8 inches long, many times the size of their relatives in the shallows. And then there was the animal that deserves to be called the creature at the bottom of the ocean. The snailfish. 8 to 10 inches long, with a soft, faintly translucent jelly-like body. It drifted through the beam of the lights like something half-finished, pale and ghostly, almost glowing. By every old rule, it should have been a flattened smear at that depth. Instead, it was whole, fully formed, fins intact, gliding through the most crushing water on the planet as calmly as a goldfish crossing a bowl. Do not look away from that image, because it matters more than any shadow. This is not a beast with teeth. It is a small, gentle, almost delicate thing. And that is exactly what makes it so unsettling. We could have braced for an armored monster built like a tank. We got this instead. The deepest fish on Earth looks fragile enough to fall apart in your hands, and yet it lives somewhere that would crush a steel cylinder. The creature that broke the rules did not look strong, it looked soft. That single gentle otherworldly animal, filmed in a place where nothing was ever supposed to live, is the image that sent scientists back to recheck everything. But the unease does not come from what the camera clearly showed. It comes from what it could not. The lights only ever lit a small bubble of water, and beyond that edge, the dark was total. And I want to be honest with you, because this is where these stories usually go off the rails. There is no proof of a monster down there, none. But here is what changed. For generations, odd shapes and strange sonar returns that matched no known animal got waved away automatically, because everyone knew there was nothing alive down there to make them. That excuse is gone. The Mariana Trench runs more than 1,500 kilometers along the seabed, almost entirely unvisited. And if creatures already grow several times larger than their shallow water cousins, the honest question is not whether that scaling has a limit. It is where that limit sits, and whether anything has ever drifted close enough to one of our few small lights to show us. The food problem. And there is a hole in this whole picture that nobody has filled. If the trench is this crowded, this active, this alive, then what on earth is feeding it? The first answer was marine snow, dead matter drifting down from far above. But the debris that actually reaches the bottom comes nowhere close to feeding a population this large and this busy. Something down there is feeding a world we cannot account for. Maybe chemosynthesis is quietly at work down there, except vents have not been found everywhere in this trench, so that cannot explain all of it. Or maybe the deep ocean recycles the same scraps over and over until almost nothing is wasted. And the place we wrote off as a dead zone is one of the most efficient ecosystems on the planet. But we do not know. We are staring at a thriving, packed world in crisp 4K, and we cannot explain what keeps it alive. Our garbage found. There is one last thing the cameras found at the bottom of the world, and it is the one that should disturb us most. The most remote spot on Earth turned out to have a visitor already. Us. When the limiting factor reached the very floor of Challenger Deep, the lights picked out plastic waste lying in the silt. 7 miles down, in the one place we were certain no human trace could ever reach, our garbage was already waiting. And it goes deeper than the seabed. When scientists examined the amphipods, those tough little survivors thriving in the most extreme conditions on Earth, they found microplastics inside their bodies. The pollution we pour into the surface had not just sunk to the bottom, it had worked its way inside the animals that live there. Think about the timeline. We did not confirm this life existed until 2019, and by the time we saw it clearly, our waste was already inside it, woven into the bodies of creatures we had not so much as named. We reached the bottom of the world twice over, once with a submarine, and long before that, without meaning to, with our trash. So, hold the whole shape of this for a moment. For generations we called the deep ocean dead, and we were wrong. We caught one pale, impossible creature drifting through water that should have destroyed it. We cannot explain what feeds that world. And the first time we looked clearly, we found our own trash had beaten us there. That is what it means to recheck everything. Not to adjust one number, but to admit the entire picture rested on an assumption that turned out to be false. The footage we have is a single candle held up in a darkness that stretches for miles in every direction. And whatever else is down there, drifting just past the edge of the light, is there right now, this second, as you sit and watch this. So, if something this alive was hiding in the one place we were sure was empty, what else have we gotten wrong? Tell me in the comments what you believe is still down there, waiting in the dark. And if this changed the way you see the bottom of the ocean, even a little, subscribe and stay with the channel, because we are only just getting started, and the deep is a very big place.